So, hello everyone. It's 1 o'clock Berlin time, and we start with our 23rd lunch talk. We are really happy to have two great colleagues today in our lunch talk. I would first stay a bit on the first slide. And yeah, it's about the social aspects of agroecology. We talk today about education, co-creation, ways of different knowledge sharing, and the community of change. And my name is Ina Sonne. I'm from Humboldt University, and my colleagues Fanny Trendl from Pest University and Sarah Prosner from the Bioregioning region in Southeast Ireland are here today with us. And both colleagues are part of a project from the Agroecology partnership, which is Ecofabulans. And we are happy that you all are joining the lunch talk. We are recording the lunch talk, and then maybe you can also share this with other colleagues if you find this interesting. Yes, we will have the possibility also to ask questions. Please use the chat actively. We will proceed with some first slides on the introduction of the lunch talk itself, on the project, and then I will present you the speakers, and then we go on with the content. We will also share the slides later on, and also the recordings, of course. Okay, so then let's move to the second slide. A bit in the content, or let's say the framework of the lunch talks that we are doing, is that we are working in different projects, actually worldwide. We started with the Edible City Network with this lunch talk series. And we have also some lunch talks in German. They are mostly linked to the Hibidi project. And then the today lunch talk is linked to the Ecofabulans project. We have a shared way to work in these projects, which is we are co-creating multifunctional, healthy, biodiverse, and inclusive landscapes. We do this through participatory and place-based actions, and you will get some insights on this from two living labs that are part of the Ecofabulans project. In the chat, we are also posting some links to the projects if you are interested to have a look on our websites. Next slide, please. Today we focus on agroecology, and related to this is the agroecological transition framework, which I would like to shortly introduce to you. On the left side, you can see that there are 5 progressive levels of transition towards agroecological landscapes. We move from incremental improvements. This means in level 1 and 2, we focus on efficiency and substitution, reducing harmful inputs on the landscape and replacing them with more sustainable alternatives. And then from level 3 on, we move to a redesign of the system, of the whole ecosystem. And this is really fundamental on the way to more, let's say, resilient landscapes. And there it becomes, the change becomes more transformational, let's say. We are looking on the whole system, on the whole food system, reconnecting producers and consumers, and ultimately also reshaping the entire food system around participation, fairness, and territorial embeddedness. And on the left side, you see the 13 principles of agroecology. I guess you are all aware of them. There are different dimensions, and I'm inviting you really to have a look on it. If you don't know them, in the link you will find the chat. In the chat you will find the link. Sorry. The first is the ecological dimension. Here we focus on working with natural processes, recycling, input reduction, decrease dependency of external inputs. Here we also find the issue on soil health, animal health, and the whole functioning of the ecosystem and ecosystem stability, and of course also biodiversity and strengthening of ecological interactions is important. The second dimension is the socioeconomic dimension, really important. Even I'm, for example, a biologist. I'm coming from this typical biological view of ecology, and so it's really enriching to look on the socio-economic dimension. So agroecology also connects people, their knowledge and their livelihood, and we will see today some very nice examples on this. So we co-create our knowledge, integrate local and scientific knowledge, and very important are the social values and and also the food, the diets of the people, which are connected to culture, the local culture and health. And of course, there are also issues, economic issues like economic diversification, which strengthen the rural resilience. Finally, the governance dimension is really important, and I guess we will also talk today a bit about this. So participation is key in decision making. We need to reconnect people not only with their landscape, with food, with the different producers, consumers along the value chain, and of course reconnecting to land and resources and ensure the stewardship of the local people and the access. So one of our key message in the Ecofabuland Living Labs is not only to apply these principles as a checklist. We have different combinations of the principles and also different focuses. Today you will learn about two living labs, and we invite you then to discuss this with us. Next slide. Here, a short view on what are the 5 living labs we have in the Ecofabulands project. Starting on the left-hand side, our colleagues in Cyprus, they are focusing on circular bio-waste composting. They have also biodiversity in mind. Here, the main key issue is the soil microbial diversity. Soil fertility is important for resilience, but also water retention and the resistance to drought. In South Tyrol, we are focusing on traditional medicinal plants. We have the organic herb farmers in focus and their producer network. And of course, these traditional medicinal plants play also an important role in conservation and valorization of these natural resources. And they are important parts of the local economy. About Hungary, we'll look in detail today. There's also a Berlin Brandenburg Living Lab. Here we focus on the community-supported agriculture and their interconnections to the urban gardening movement. Here we also look on crop and habitat diversity, on food and agrobiodiversity literacy. So it's important to strengthen the local, the regional food system and the collective capacities. And in the next minutes, we will learn much more about our living lab in Southeast Ireland on the bioregional landscape planning. So I would like to jump into the next slide and shortly introduce our 2 speakers. You can see here on the slide the locations of the living labs, but more or less you see also our speakers that will be highlighted in the next minutes. I'm happy to introduce to you Sarah Prosner. She's leading the Bioregioning lab in Ireland. This lab has a focus on social ecological systems and watershed-based governance. It works on aligning policy, finance, and governance with living systems. Yes, it has a background on social and solidarity economy, but there's also the issue on human rights. And Sarah has a lot of experience across Ireland, Norway, and Scotland. And now, Sarah, the floor is yours. We are happy to have you on board. And please remember, you can put the questions in the chat, and we will discuss all questions after the two presentations. Sarah, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It's been a long journey to get here, and I think we're just delighted to be part of this consortium. And I'd just like to acknowledge Keely O'Brien, who's also in the participants, who will be leading the Living Lab in the southeast of Ireland as well going forward. But I'm taking this one because it's the social aspects, and perhaps that's some of my background that I'd like to bring in. But it really feels like a home. I mean, the aim of Ecofabulands at being at a sort of landscape scale, and I think this is what bioregioning brings into it, is the sort of the scale and the big scale ambition of being a container where lots of things can all happen at once, and we acknowledge the complexity of the social aspects. So my own background is both from the geology side and the sort of what holds us, but also from neighbourhood development. And I'd like to bring in both sides of that. So if you go to the next slide. As you said, you've started defining a little bit about what agroecology is, and it's so many things all at once. And we're not going to talk about the agro or the ecology part particularly today, but more about the sort of the social side of it, which is about building sort of equity, biodiversity, food sovereignty, fair markets, all these kind of things. But also I think about the relationships and how do we relate people to place, and how do we build social cohesion and the systems that we need behind the outcomes that we're looking for, and how can we make that viable in the long run. And it's really complex. And I think, that's the one message maybe, is that we have to remember that this is a complex thing and there is no one way of doing it. But then how do we build platforms for complexity? So next slide. So what I'm going to do in this talk is a little bit of framing here and there and a little bit of reflections here and there, and try and root it mostly in the slide you see there on the right, and that's our bioregion, standing up on the Commonland Mountains, looking out across some of the richest agricultural land in Europe, where lots of milk is produced and exported, and lots of beef is produced and exported. And then the question is, what are the challenges? And we know that there are lots of challenges, which I'll bring back later. But the water quality, the health of the soil, the amount of biodiversity. So the kind of things we're used to hearing in ecological challenges. Whereas the place on the right, on the left, is Tøyen, an area in Oslo, where I worked for many years, working with the social challenges that we're more used to talking about. So things like crime levels, housing, education, social and economic levels. And both these areas are looking for transformation. And to do transformation, if you look at the next slide, it's going to be the people in those landscapes rather than the landscape or the neighborhood themselves. So these are the people that I've been working with, and that are just the best people. They're just such good people. They're so passionate about their very, very different entry points into how to make change. But when they come together and you can make that collective movement for change, that's when it gets really very exciting indeed. So next slide, please. If we just go back to the living landscape, and this is some slides from some maps from Ireland. We're down in the southeast. As a whole, the island, you can see the quote there from the Environmental Protection Agency that there's an environmental scorecard for Ireland, and within climate, air quality, nature, water and waste, all of those 5 areas, the ranges are from moderate to poor, or very poor. We've got some really big issues in Ireland, and they're very integrated in systems and all of society, and difficult to resolve as individual things. But when you look at the maps, you can see that the one in the middle at the top there is to do with soil health. The one on the right top is amount of high nature quality land. The one in the middle at the bottom is water quality. The one at the bottom right is to do with land prices. The colours don't reflect it, but if you look at the numbers, the land prices, how much it costs to get hold of agricultural land. And you can see that the difference in the southeast and the rest of Ireland is always worse, actually, in all those aspects. So if we're going to think about sort of large landscapes, we're going to be looking for different kind of responses and contexts. The other diagram there, the round one, is a kind of donut economic one, for those that know about that. And it's showing Ireland as the one at the top, is emerging as the country that's actually the furthest away from the safe and just space for humanity. And there are reasons for doing that. But I just wanted to use this slide to say we've got big scale, systemic, huge challenges that need to be addressed. So what's happening? And there's lots of things happening at the EU level with the CAP and biodiversity laws and things. And then the big one at the moment is the nature restoration law. The nature restoration law has to be applied in different countries. And if you look at the next slide, they've just recently done a consultation for the people around Ireland of how do you feel about the need to restore nature. And the kind of things they're responding with are very sort of personal and social. You know, they're grief, anger, anxiety. They're to do with government failures and wanting sort of better enforcement, under-resourcing. But then that last bullet point, they want participation, collaboration. They want local knowledge to be supported, education, empowerment and funding and genuine partnership. And all these things, it doesn't matter whether it's nature or not, but these are what people and the social movements are really calling out for. And the question is, how can we make that happen? So next slide, please. This is then going to the sort of the theory a little bit. And this is, when I teach the social innovation people at the university in Oslo, I teach social workers. And this is the first fundamental, beginning of the first year, they learn about Einstein's ladder of citizen participation. And I just wanted to put it up because, that consultation I just referred to is right in the middle there. It's only a degree of tokenism. Even consulting people is only a degree of tokenism. And what they're asking for is the next layers, the citizen control, the delegated power, the partnership. And I think we're so far away still from understanding what that is. And maybe that's the main thing is just, what are we doing still thinking that consultation is enough? It's just, let's move on. So we tried to move on, and let's go back to Tøyen and see what I learned from Tøyen in Oslo. And that's the next slide. And this is I went in there. I was employed in the city of Oslo. This was in a public sector position to begin with, but we spun out. And I was in a building where there was a junk room, and we cleared out all the junk and called it an incubator, and went in with this thesis behind us, that what if we considered that the talent and creativity we need to create and maintain a vibrant place already exists locally? It just needs the conditions to grow and be nurtured. So if we really believe that and believe that everything is there already and we just need to nurture, what does that nurture look like? So what we did was set up what we call a neighbourhood incubator, Tøyen Unlimited. And this is a sort of safe space of belonging where people can come in with their ideas, with their passions, with their connections and say, I want to change something. And they're met by somebody who listens to them, respects them, sees them and encourages them. There are some financial possibilities of support. We have try it, do it and build it packages for 1,000, 5,000 and 10,000, which we can give out and just let people go off and experiment and try. But in the next slide, you can see this is in Norwegian, but these are the insights that we gained. And the first part are all about the human. How do we meet people? How do we make them feel that they matter? Doing things, everything from listening to facilitation to power discussions. Everything on the other side is to do with tools. How can we give them the capacity through social business canvases and communication and collective impact and how to set up businesses? And it's this combination of human and tools that is the sort of special thing, and listening to which ones matter for different people. Next slide, please. So that model is now scaled, and these coloured blobs are now scaling incubators across Norway. 10 have now been set up in the last 10 years, and then they're scaling, they're increasing. And they're very close connection to the public sector, so we're building bridges as well, but they are independent. So they're low entry points, they're driving collective change in these neighbourhoods. They're spaces where people can come and test their ideas, they can find out hidden skills, they can build confidence and agency, they can strengthen local networks. Lots of research has been done on this. And these are all the kind of things that we really need in that social movement for agricultural. So for agroecology. So my question is then, how do we then invest in these things? How can we invest in that trust before we invest in the sort of value chain transactions? How can we invest in belonging before we start developing businesses? How can we invest in relationships before we start talking about scaling? And how can we enable that sense of mattering where you feel both seen and enabled? So if we take this learning and go back to Ireland, I need to move along. Next slide, please. So this is us in Ireland now, much bigger scale than a neighbourhood, but the same sort of thing. Okay, the map on the left are the traditional power-based counties. The one on the right is the watersheds. What if we rearrange the way that we hold things? Then we can stay true to the nature, and therefore things like water pollution make sense rather than crossing boundaries. So these are the bioregions. Next slide, please. Each of these bioregions will have its own story of place. And if you think back to that first map I showed, you can remember that there were very different problems in the southeast and the northwest. So it makes sense to sort of cluster at this scale. And this is also the scale that's sort of the bigger scale you can develop relationships. We know that really good ones will happen on a smaller scale, but it's also possible to work at this level. Next slide, please. So how we work is we go out into the field and we meet farmers and we listen and trust and try and then bring people together and say, look, you've got a bigger intent here. You're all trying for the same thing. You know, for all part of the bigger picture, how does it change? And then we suggest that, you know, we're looking to bring back a sense of we're trying to make natural capital, we're trying to make an economic capital, but we're also trying to make social capital and a return of inspiration to drive that. And these are the 4 returns of Commonland that drive everything we do. And by listening to these people, we know that there's passion out there, and they define the directions of ideas that we can then support. So this becomes our portfolio of concepts. And the next slide sort of is a way of trying to show we've got all these things happening down the left, all these things that we can go out and support because we know there's passion to do that. But they're all together so entangled that they're going to come out with both inspiration, social, natural, and financial. And we can't determine linearly quite how that's going to work. But we know that if they're all working together, it's going to be more likely. So next slide. This is a model of showing that the orange blobs are sort of us as a team. We're only sort of 2.5, 3 people supporting a massive amount of different things going on. Some of them are very specific, some of them are more systemic. So this support platform is what I'm going to talk a bit more about today. We'll keep going. Some of that support is bringing people together and saying, let's write down what are our common values, what are our common intent, what is our common vision. This is our manifesto, which I'd really encourage you to go and listen to. If there's one thing you do, go and listen to this. The next slide shows it happening again at another level where we curated just earlier this year, the grain network, the meat network, the dairy network and the horticultural networks that we know, and they all came together and co-wrote their principles. So they're again sort of saying, you know, what are our common values, what are our common principles, and then we can start working together as a network, all doing our own things. The next slide, please. I want to just talk my last few minutes about how we can then support some of those ideas that are coming out. And this is basically a sort of model that's copied from the neighbourhood incubators, from our Try It, Do It, Build It grants over there. We've now developed within the bioregion Catalyst, Do It and BBIs. Catalyst grants, 1,000 to go off and try something. Do It grants to really learn by doing. And BBIs are bioregional basic infrastructures and incomes. So I'll just talk a little bit more about just some of the Do It's and the BBIs. Next slide, please. Do It grants, these are 8,000 grants. This is like, there's a farmer, John Murphy, he may be on the call now, who had some land, wasn't too sure what to do. People are looking for somewhere how to engage in better food networks. And by giving 8,000, we were able to just kickstart, able to buy fence posts and seeds that was enough for John to say, go on, let's try doing this kind of farming that both is inclusive but also guarantees the farmer a guaranteed income, pension, and insurance, because it's done through a community share model rather than, so it's financially viable as well as socially viable. Other things we've done is work with older people as change makers and their access and literacy. and with more on a systems change level to how we can have a bioregional or a land observatory looking at shifts in land and access. Let's see the next slide, please. The BBIs, the two kind of BBIs. One is the infrastructure grant, which we give. We've bought a van, we've bought a 2-wheel tractor and a mill. These are fundamental bits of hardcore infrastructure that suddenly let people do what they want to do. They want to farm with on a smaller scale. They want to have local access to pig abattoirs. They want to be able to have a local source for organic grain to start feeding into local organic bakers. Unless you've got the infrastructure there, people can't make the change. So the final example I want to talk about was the basic income. This is people have heard of universal basic income, and we're trying a bioregional basic income. This is giving someone a 3-year guaranteed basic income. In the case of this example, it's 17,000 a year, and it's copied off the Irish basic income for artists example. But this is the first time a farmer has had it, a local farmer. And this is Roger Ahern. And he was a market gardener, struggling with a lot of jobs going on all at once. And I just wanted to show some quotes on the next slide of what he said after getting this basic income guaranteed. And that first quote, I feel like I have more agency, more control over my business. Now, everyday life, getting that basic income. So that's one of the things we were looking for, social aspects, agency. You feel that you are in control again. The next quote is also about the natural returns. I don't need to push my soil so much. I can be more regenerative now because he's feeling empowered to be regenerative. This basic income has got no conditions on it. It's unconditional, except talking to us about what for returns he's making. But he also says that he's spending more money locally. He's going to start renting more land to put into better soil practices. He doesn't need to push the garden anymore. His soil is getting better. But we never said, go do agroecology things. And, it's just because he's a passionate person who hadn't been able to do these kind of things before. And now the final quote is, I was questioning the whole viability of the business, but the basic income's completely eradicated the stress and all that pressure. It's gone. My level of stress is gone, and I feel like a different person. And I just think, there's small amounts of money when you see what else we're subsidizing. Imagine if we could fill bioregion with people with basic incomes, do-it grants, catalyst grants, bit of infrastructure, all of it brought together into these manifestos. And that's where social movements come from. So the last slide. Oh, no, the second last slide, sorry. One was just about saying that this is just the start. We're funded by philanthropists and some project funding, but we've got big ambitions to grow that whole portfolio to be an investment for big scale funding. And that's where we'd be able to start co-financing for regranting, those kind of things, building community wealth funds, doing embedded hubs like the neighbourhood incubator, but bioregional incubator sort of thing, and build really, really ambitiously. So then the last slide is the final slide, which is just saying, now step back again and look at our bioregion and look out across from the top of the Commonwealth and think, what the social aspects are. They're about those people being empowered to go off and do what they're already passionate about, but to do it collectively for systems change. And that's how we think that people can stop worrying about things falling apart and things can start falling together. So that's my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your inspiring talk. And please post your question in the chat. We would like to discuss then both talks and both inspiring speeches, and then we can discuss it. Thank you, Sarah. And I would like to shortly introduce to you Fanny Trendl. Fanny Trendl is assistant professor of the University of Pécs. She's teaching Romani studies and sociology of education, and she's executive director of the Roma Versitas Foundation, which is a Roma internship program. She will tell us about this, and she leads the Ecofabuland's Living Lab in Teschany in Hungary. And her focus is on inclusion, participation, and Roma education in agroecological context. And her expertise, of course, on education systems, social equity, and cooperative learning. So, Fanny, we are really happy to have you here on board, and we are waiting for your inspiring talk. And please pose your questions in the chat to Sarah and to Fanny, and we will discuss them after this talk. So, Fanny, now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ina, for introducing me, and please accept my big gratefulness because of being here. So thank you having me and giving this opportunity for me and for our community to introduce ourselves. So we are a little bit outsiders, and I was feeling it before this lunch talk, but after listening to Sarah's presentation, I don't feel it any longer, because our topic is so close to each other, and I think the principles and the way how we think about the communities, the people, how to get them together, it's really similar. And I think one of our example could be what I would like to show you from Hungary, and then we can see how it can be joined. So here in Hungary, our project is operating in a little town called Tészeny, which is in a very disadvantaged region of Hungary. And we just started to set up our community garden. So really in this stage, I cannot tell you about the the steps of this community garden. I rather bring you today a presentation about the inclusive work, what we are doing in the University of Pécs. And I would like to show this proof about this operation. And this is what we would like to use in Tészeny village, and we would like to work with the community also with this kind of inclusive methods. So today I would like to show you research very shortly about how our students feel themselves in a university framework. So as Ina mentioned, I'm working with Roma Gypsy students here in University of Pécs, and they are mainly first generation students. I mean, they are the first from their families who are in the university. And the most of them, or the biggest part of these students, are the first who has their higher education studies also. So they are stepping two steps on the education mobility field, and it's a very big gap between the students, between the students' parents' life and the students who I'm going to talk about. So in this inclusive environment, we are trying to create a place, a community where all the students who are coming to our student society called Vlislotsky Henrik Student Society to feel themselves at home, and try and strengthen their belonging feelings to the universities, because it's a very different environment from their family background and from their previous experiences. So we are trying to create a bridge between their families, their communities, and between the university, the academic life, so they can feel more comfortable themselves and they can be more successful in their higher education studies. So we asked them in our latest research to, and can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So we asked them to tell us about their life stories, also what was interesting or important for them to make all their school career and how they can get to the university. And it was important because here in Hungary, the Roma Gypsy population are overrepresented in the most disadvantaged, the purest group of the society. So it's needed to create supportive environments for them to be presented at the higher education here in Hungary, to create a more equal society, or to create more equal opportunities for a better society. So this is the importance of this topic. And can I have the next slide? Yes, and what we believe and what we are trying to create with this inclusive idea is a space, a non-formal space where they can learn, they can find their peers, their community, where they can deal with their difficulties, where they can find their motivation to not to give up their higher education studies. So this is what we are trying to create for them. And in this research, we try to understand university as a formal environment and the student society as a non-formal space environment where they can be who they are really. So can I have the next slide, please? Yes. So the questions what we asked for them, what I mentioned previously, to tell about their life stories, and what we specifically was curious about, what are they associating when they think about the university and the student society. So we were curious about if they have any differences in their minds about these two spaces. And we asked them to write 3, maximum 5 words to both of these categories. And we try to analyze these results. So if we can go to the next slide, I can show you. Yeah. So shortly just about the sample and the population of this research. We did it between 2022-2025, and we asked these Roma Student Society members who are participating mainly in university cities in these student societies. So in total, they are 300, but for our questionnaire, 182 students gave answers. So this was our sample, what we were analyzing. And from this 182 students, 108 person was who said that, yes, I am coming from Roma Gypsy background. So their answers are the most important for us. So if we can go to the next slide. Yes, with the data, we worked with 3 independent coders, and what I would like to show you the word cloud, because I think this can show us the most detailed results. Yes. Yes, these are the words which they were writing. And here you can see the word cloud which came out from for the 2 categories. On the left side, you can see the associations for the word universities and colleges. And on the right side, you can see the words what they were writing as when they associated to Roma student societies. So this is you can see a very, very big differences. So, and what is important for us that the words they wrote for the Roma Student Society, for example, support, community, friends, friendship, and family. So for us, it tells that these student societies are their second home, where they can come home, relax and solve their problems parallel with their university studies, where daily they are focusing on their diploma, on their opportunities, on their exams, on the studying. So next to the, how to say, this formal environment, they can find their place in this informal, non-formal environment in the student societies. So when we were analyzing the meaning and the content of these words, here in this graph, you can see that all the words were mainly positive, but for the Roma student societies, there were more mentioning with positive contents. So can I have, I think not the next one, maybe two. Yes, one more. Yes, this is the main categories where we categorized all the the words what we get from this questionnaire. And here you can see what they were associated with their mobility paths. So who were the protectors or who were the supporters in this career. So here you can see that their family was a very, very important factor. And it's important for us because when it comes to the Roma Gypsy groups, it's often we can hear that their family, their background, their community is not able to support their school careers because they are not able to do it, because they are poor, or because they have no experiences in upper education career. But that's not true. Family is very important also in the case of these students because they can give a background, if not financially, morally. So family is a very important protective factor in this question. So, and on the third place, you can see that the community of the Roma Student Society was mentioning, and it shows us that it's an important place where they can find opportunities, support, help for their difficulties, connected to their university studies, but connecting to their personal life, to their personal problems. So in the quote, if I can have this slide with the quote. Yes, here. Sorry, Clara, can I have all? Here you can find quotes from the students, and all of these are about how they describe the supporting factors and the protective factors during these during their social mobility and educational school career. And you can see that the family appears at these quotes. Also, the student society appears, and they are telling stories about the student society as their second family, which they feel themselves in safe, and they can whenever come here and get answers to their questions. So I think this kind of feeling, what the students have and what they associate to the Roma Student Society, it means for me kind of a guarantee that if we use all the tools and the principles, if we can operate at our project in our living lab in Tésen, at that community, it can be a guarantee that the community of Tésény is going to be an active changer in their life, active agents in the life of the community garden, and hopefully in long term, they are going to feel themselves as real agents in their lives changes, not just in the life of the community, but in their own lives also. So this was this kind of theoretical and practice framework what we are using in our student society here at the University of Pécs. And I think in my last slides, I just mentioning, please, the last one is the next, I think. This is summarizing how we are planning to do our work in Tésény, and it's going to be the same, with the same aims and plans as we are doing it in our student society. Yes, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Fanny. Thank you so much for your presentation and for the insights. Really interesting, and I have I've seen that they are matching very well. I will now go. Please use the chat for questions. I will take the first one to both of you, to Fanny and to Sarah. You both have shown. Let's say, an environment of co-creation and participation in a more urban setting, the example of the neighborhood incubator, and in Fanny's case, the university setting in Pécs. How this is different to a rural setting. If you imagine Tésény or the village, more rural setting, or in the rural setting of Southeast Ireland. What is the special, let's say, challenge to do co-creation of the environment in rural settings? If you compare this, maybe Sarah, you start first, because then Fanny can take a breath. Is it like this, that the people in the rural setting are more isolated, have less possibilities to participate actively in co-creation settings? What is your reflection on this?
I don't think it's that different. I think it's very easy to say, it's the density that matters. But even in urban settings, it takes time to get from one place to another, and people don't know their neighbours, even though they live in the next door flat. Mm-hmm. And people don't know their neighbours in a rural setting just because they haven't ever had a reason to interact and look over the hedge. And we've heard from our farm example that this is a place where neighbours are gathering and getting to know each other. And to have that quality time outside has opened a whole new relationships in that local sub-catchment area. And I think maybe the sub-catchment, so the tributary sort of scale to a watershed, is probably the equivalent of a neighbourhood in a rural, in a social setting. I think we're used to talking about social, because it's the social aspects of agroecology. You were just used to first starting in an urban setting because that's where they're perhaps the most obvious. But and I think this is what I'm almost trying to say, is that there's so much learning that has been done there that it's not that different, and we don't need to reinvent too many wheels in the rural setting, because there is a huge amount now of how to work with empowerment and fairness and relationships. And I think that's almost the point, that it's not that different. You might have to get in a car or a tractor rather than on the bus or walk across the thing. But I think we'd be surprised how similar they are. And maybe it's, when we're talking about agroecology, the co-creation, I think maybe it's co-creation is also the challenging word, because what does co-creation doesn't mean to say that you have to work together on the same project. It means you're working together towards the same intent.
Yes.
And I think as long as you are given that agency to work with what you want to, and you passionately and have the skills and want to get involved with, then it doesn't really matter whether you're a farm apart or a wall apart. You've been given that agency to work towards the same intent. But then you need somebody to bring you together. And it's the curating role that needs space to be supported. So that's my immediate thought. But
okay. Yeah, thank you. Fanny, what do you imagine in different working setting in Teschen compared to PESH? Or do you have some reflections from your students regarding this?
I think what is challenging for us, as we are not part of this community, and what we have to pay attention is to have somebody who works with us and understand what we would like to start, to have this somebody who can connect us to the community and somehow create us a door to get into the community and to try to involve them. But after, I think all the processes are the same difficulties, how we can involve them, how we can be a trust, and how we can show that we are coming with good intents and what we would like to create something common and mutual with them. So I think this could be a key, but we were paying attention for this from the first moment, and that's why we have a colleague in Teschen who is living there and who is working at this community. So, we hope that it's going to make it easier a little bit to start everything. Yeah.
Could I respond just a little bit? Could I just respond a little bit? There's three things you said there, Fanny.
You can do it, Sarah. I only want to link also with a question of the chat, but it's linked to this, what Fanny is just saying. There's a question from Maria Hetman to you, Sarah, and but I guess also Fanny already mentioned some issues. The question from Maria is, what are the biggest obstacles and challenges you are facing in your initiative, Sarah? And maybe this you can link this to what you want to add to Fanny's.
Yes, I can. Well, the first sort of link, I suppose, then would be that a lot of this work is invisible. You know, it's not the output that we're working with; it's the spaces in between, and that somebody that Fanny referred to is. Well, when I first arrived in Ireland, I was employed in a role called a weaver, and my role was to weave social change by connecting people and projects. But that's an invisible role. Your role is in between the visible things. So I think finding the people who are prepared to take the risk to fund those invisible, connecting, trust building, supporting, gathering, being the door to signpost people from one place to another and paying attention, all these things that Fanny talked about. It's that embeddedness as well, you know, that you're there, that you're doing something that could quite easily just be ignored, and people think they can just fund the output. But if they don't fund the support platform as well as the projects, then it all falls apart. And it was very exciting another piece of work I did in Norway was to see a first public sector municipality starting to employ a public sector position called a weaver, and that was working with Katie, who's also in this chat. But to see that people are beginning to value that role would to me very exciting, and would be an obstacle that would help if more people could understand intangible outcomes. If that sort of answers both questions. Yes. I think the other answer to that, the biggest obstacles and what would help, I think are is something to do with the mindset of taking risks and thinking alternatively. And people need examples to be able to be inspired by. And we talk about the four returns, and we want social and financial and natural sustainability. But until we get the inspiration, sustained as well. That sense of hope and purpose and togetherness and collective and movement that's happening. And if we can invest in that, now who's going to invest in that? And that I think probably is the biggest the obstacle is the investment, understanding investment for resilience and investment for long-termness has to also invest in this constant nurturing of people and the social potential that they have, and say, come on, you can do it, and give them the right kind of reflexive and agile responses rather than a one-off solution that just misses a lot of what people are really looking for.
Yeah. Sarah, this is linked to this question. Actually, there are coming up some more questions in terms of investment, and it's mostly projects that when we have some possibility to fund some of this process, to support this, etc. There is the question on your example from the farmer who got this income, really a small amount of money compared to what we normally have in projects. Could you tell us a bit more about this? There's the question of was in the chat if this is part of the subsidies from the CAP.
The CAP hectare-based subsidies.
If this is linked somehow or not. And
it is. I think it's to do with financial flows coming into landscapes, and at the moment, a lot of the financial flows that comes into the agricultural landscape is through CAP. Based subsidies that go to people that tend to be related to how much land you own. And if you've complied with certain regulations, and if you own the land, and there's quite a lot of things you have to be before things can flow to that. What we want to do with the basic income is say you could be anybody. You could be renting land, you could be a new entrant farmer, don't have to be a farmer, you could be a distributor, you could be driving the van around that connects all the farmers, and that it's unconditional. So it's trust-based. There's not this sort of, you've got to do these things to be eligible. You just need to be trusted that you're the kind of person that not even that. It's unconditional funding, and that makes it really different. It means that you've got the time to do agroecology, because that's quite a knowledge-based. It takes longer to think about how to watch how do things interact and what to experiment forward without inputs and things. So it gives you it removes the stress of having to just do the intensive stuff to sell the most expensive vegetables, as Rogers would say. You can you can grow other things, and you can have diverse food systems rather than the monocultural answer that's going to earn the most money. So it really, I think it decouples the sort of scaling, the need to scale and buy more land and more to actually say, well, actually, this is about stewarding our land in a good way, but I still need to make a viable income. And just to say it's a minimal, if they get that basic income, and the whole concept of universal basic incomes is that you can then go on to earn whatever you want on top without losing that. So it's unconditional to whatever else happens. You can choose whether your quality of life comes from earning less and having the time to do things, or if you want to use it as a springboard to go off and start other things. So it's not suggesting you'd be able to survive on that, but it gives you, just removes that and opens the possibility to work with and take risks and be someone different coming into a system. So it's something quite different, I think, than the CAP. But imagine if we'd switched it or opened it, or just even a little bit of the CAP subsidies.
Yeah. Interesting, Sarah. It would be nice to make follow up how this develops and continues over years, and what are the long-term effects. Or there's a question for Fanny regarding the biggest inspiration in Hungary at the moment regarding the Roma community, I guess.
Yes.
Fanny, do you know what?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ina, and thank you, Clara, to mentioning this. So our student society was founded in 2001. And to be honest, I was a student of this society also, and I'm coming also from a Roma Gypsy background. And it comes to the narratives and the role of these student societies. But As you may know, in Hungary, we had a very big political changes in the last 3 weeks, or 1 month, almost. So after 16 years, we could change our party who was on government. It was half dictatorship, I would call. Sorry, I'm not a politologist, but finally we could change them. And right now we are having our first Roma person who is going to be a vice president of our parliament. His name is Christian Kőszegi, and he was one of our students here in Pécs in our student society. And he's 31 years old right now. He's a history, geographic teacher, basically, and he started to work with this new political party in the last half year or 1 year, and he succeeded, and he's going to be, in the history of Hungary, the first vice president in our parliament. So this is a big proud for everybody here in our community. Yes.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
thank you, Fanny, for sharing this with us. I'm very sorry. I have to look always a bit on the time, and we are already over the time. So I only want to share with you, first of all, we will share the talks, the presentations, and also all the links that you can find in the chat currently. Then later with our uploading in our YouTube channel, and of course there are also the website from our project. There's a LinkedIn account. Please check also the YouTube channel. We will share there also more information, and we would like to invite you as well to our next lunch talks. And even if you have a good idea for a nice talk, please contact us. We are happy to organize this. And the key is, of course, always to discuss and listen this hour, because you have then other meetings, etc. But there will be the next lunch talk, and we will, of course, there will be more opportunities also to talk to Fanny and to Sarah, and to have more inspiring talks on this issue. I would like to invite you to the next lunch talk, which is on 16th of June, also next month. Actually, this lunch talk will be in German, but we will provide then later also a translation to English. We will focus on community gardens as places of integration, or in a really broad sense, from refugees, different peoples, different mindsets, etc. And here we have two very inspiring women as well on stage as today. Anush Amir Khalil, she's from the Flamingo project in Berlin and working for Anstiftung. She got this Woman Citizens Award recently. And Yifat Maor, she's an artist and a garden activist in Berlin, coming originally from Israel. So we will have very inspiring talks as well in the next lunch talk. And please, thank you for being with us today. And please feel free to contact us. And it's like always the starting of such conversations. And we are happy to see you next time again. Thank you all. And I hope you enjoyed the lunch with our talk. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Fanny, for your inspiring presentations. And see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.